Okay, I'm starting early because I'm going to play this new song called $100. This really happened to me when I was a tram driver years ago. This young, what do you call it, trans man, woman, whatever, got on the tram. I wasn't sure which she was, but she was homeless. She was in a bad way, and it was really late at night, and she had nowhere to sleep. And so I was sort of figuring out what I should do. And she was so kind and so gentle. It just seemed like someone was lost in our society. So I came home and I wrote this thing, and it's actually been put on as plays and stuff. People have done it as monologues, called $100. But now I've put it to AI, and AI is putting music to free verse poetry in a way that I've never heard before. So, oh my God, we've lost all our Facebooks. Okay, let's begin. This is called $100.
Tomorrow, I'm meeting a woman who posts naked photos of herself on Instagram and then tells me in text that she's plain. I Googled the modern definition of the word plain, but all I found was my face. And somewhere below, the bats are flying overhead like some sort of prehistoric hunger. Which is this night, which is just another night where this lonely person gets onto my tram. I call it a person because I can't tell if it's a woman or a man. And she looks like she's been living in her clothes for a week. They are too big for him and they are dirty, and her hair is a nest blown free from a naked tree in a storm which overlooked me. And with a Slurpee in her hand, she sits in my tram. At Box Hill, he just stands on the stop as though she is lost. So I ask him, do you know where you are, my love? And she asks, are you heading back? Yes, but only to the depot. And she nods to this, then looks up at the night where the bat's wings are whispering to her. And then she asks me, is there anywhere there where I can stay? No, but I can drop you off at Macca's. You could stay there for the night. I don't think that they would mind. And so together we're now heading back to Q, but I just don't know what to do. If I bring her home, my family will go crazy. But if I leave her here alone, what sort of crazy Christian soul action is that? And I think she's only about 20. Do you have any money? I ask. Yes, she says, and she says it politely and into the last of her drink. Are you sure? Because I can stop at a bank and get you some cash. And privately I've been wondering all the way to here, how much should I give her to placate my soul? $40. But then because I've been having a good week that sounds like chicken shit, so my soul suggests let's give her $100. And my brain replies, no, 40 is fine. And as they fight for an inner consensus, my heart turns around and says, look, let me give you some money. But she looks up to me and says, is me heading back in an empty tram to a date with a woman who sounds empty too, and the knowledge that my secret mirror will never reflect my soul's man, and the knowledge that my secret mirror will never reflect my soul's man.
So before I bring our lovely man on, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, 10 or 11, we might be doing a show about the hacking of the young man in MyGov, because that's the last time I checked yesterday morning. It had over 500,000 views, and my inbox has been inundated with all these people have been hacked, and they've gone through the same thing. Apparently, they're keeping it quiet. Wonder why? Maybe it's going to put people off digital ID. So we'll let you know in the morning if it's going to go ahead, but we're looking to do a special at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Anyway, that said, let's bring on Lindsay. How you doing?
Hey, Michael, I'm good, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's kind of like this, but it's what a week, man. It's, they're ramping up. They're ramping up the what would you call it?
Craziness. Who'd have thunk it could have got crazier?
It's the govern me harder, daddy. Seems to be the mode of the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this was the question. The question for this week was: do people actually want this? Are we the small mob that actually wants to be left alone, like scrub bulls, but the main herd actually doesn't mind and is willing to adapt to being governed much harder? Because a few things that have come through, like from the AFP, which we'll bring up, it seems that we're going to be very soon, we'll probably have what the UK has, where, we'll be arrested for saying the wrong thing online. Anyway, that's the fundamental question to start. I know my questions get too long, but is it in our nature to be governed harder? Do a lot of people prefer that? What are your thoughts?
The short answer is I believe so, very much. I think.
Wow.
Well, there's kind of evidence everywhere you look, Michael.
Is that evidence now? Did you see that evidence before? Have you changed your mind in the last 5 years, or is it sort of hit home more?
I think the first time it really impacted on me that there is this kind of human need to be parented came with the fall of the USSR, when Russia arguably became a democracy, but at least it broke up and the Berlin Wall came down and all that sort of stuff. And there were many reports available, and there's been some research into it, where there was a surprisingly large number of people who bemoaned the fall of communism.
I did hear that.
Because it counterintuitively required them to start taking responsibility for their own lives. They had to choose what colour their clothes were going to be, where for the entirety of Lenin's time, you got whatever the commissariat gave you. All of a sudden, I mean, there were stories during communism of taxi drivers parking their taxis in a garage and jacking the back wheels up and just letting them drive themselves in place all day, because they got paid for the number of miles they ran, not for the number of passengers that they used. So people adapted, but they found a level of comfort under a totalitarian rule. And now, of course, Russia is now the home of corrupt capitalism, I suspect. But that kind of alerted me to the fact that that people like strong leaders, for example.
Yeah.
Now, we're in a peculiar era now where we've raised at least one, possibly two generations of people who have very little resilience and who expect the world to be nice to them. And so we've now got the rise of the authoritarian pseudo nice guy who's saying, I will protect you from the nasty people. I'll stop them saying and thinking and writing bad things about people like you. All you've got to do is allow me to play my games to stay in power. So that's one aspect of it. The other is the death by 1,000 pinpricks, the boiling frog scenario, where I'm sure you know Brett Weinstein. Yeah. He talks about turnkey totalitarianism, that they keep doing things in the guise of keeping everybody safe, and we're only interested in your well-being, and we're all in this together. And what they're actually doing is silently putting up the walls of the prison, and people go, oh gee, those bars are really good. They don't actually interrupt the view very much, do they? Oh look, we've got them on this side as well, and it's so convenient. And the payback is that I don't have to worry about building my own. And oh, did I hear one go? And all of a sudden, the door closes and you turn the key, and the key turns in the lock, and you suddenly realise that you've allowed yourself to be seduced into an authoritarian prison, and it's too damn late. What you've then got to wait for, which is what happens to almost all authoritarian regimes, is that they eventually implode. And I don't know whether China is a new version of an authoritarian regime. North Korea might be another relatively long-lived one as well, but I think North Korea's only been around, it's been around for less than I've been alive, which is still a long time. But Lenin's Russia, I think, only lasted about 60 years. Mao's China kind of imploded into what it is now. But totalitarianism is incredibly difficult to maintain because governments are really bad at managing stuff. And the example of Mao and the sparrows, the Lysenko experiment in Russia.
What's the sparrows? Now with the sparrows, tell us that. I haven't heard that story.
Oh, this blew me away when I heard about this. And the English colonials did it with the cobras. Konstantin Kissin's been talking about the cobra effect recently. But Mao was told by one of his advisors that they were losing millions of tons of grain to sparrows, and that they've got hundreds of millions of people. Why don't they just pass an edict that everybody has to kill a sparrow when they see it? And so they all but eradicated sparrows from communist China in a very short period of time.
Wow.
And their next crops just failed dismally because the sparrows were keeping the bugs in line as well. And they were doing it for the paltry fee of a few grains of rice. So this is what governments do.
Yeah.
They had a famine, absolutely. And most totalitarian regimes kill vast numbers of their own population under the guise of loving them to death. We will look after you. All you've got to do is rely on us. And all of a sudden, when the food dries up and the shelves are empty in the supermarket, and you have lost the capacity to produce your own food, it only takes a month or so to die of starvation.
Yeah.
And that's been the result of most authoritarian regimes. And it's not hard to look into the lens of 21st century Western world and see the rise of soft totalitarianism.
Yeah.
And it's only soft until they've finished building the prison, and they can then slam the door and lock it. And then it's just plain old garden variety authoritarianism.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what they do with the dissidents. With COVID.
Can we just go back to the taxi thing? That is similar to the people wearing the mask under their nose. So, that's what we used to see that all the time. Like, I'm wearing it, but I'm not really there. I'm just doing the least amount I have to do to
token cooperation.
Yeah. If I take it off, they'll focus on me. But now they say pull it up, and I go, oh, so yes, it's if you think back to auto tellers. No one ever told us we had to stand a meter back. They never had an advertising campaign. They never drew lines. We just did it. We just stand back there. I've even noticed that you go anywhere in Australia and they love their signs. No walking on the grass. No here. No there's. They just love it. You know,
Yeah.
I think my favorite one ever. This was the most incredible thing. I had this tiny little dog, and it was on this incredibly wild, stormy beach, and it did a little pee on the beach. And this woman came and said, "That could poison everything. You're not allowed to have the dog on the beach." And I'm thinking, lady, whales pee in that ocean. Whales, you know? Look at this thing. But she couldn't get it because in her world, no, dogs aren't allowed to beach. That's it. So this is the sort of person and mindset that common sense doesn't make sense. She feels safe within her rules. Is that what you're sort of saying? Someone that there's my rules and that's where I feel safe within them.
And as long as, I mean, there's a couple of ways, I guess, that the way we've observed totalitarian regimes come into being historically is through some form of force that it's been a military coup or something like that has happened, or it's been a corruption of those reasonably liberal democratic system has allowed these people to sneak in, and you might argue that that's what we're seeing in Australia at the moment.
Yeah.
But,
like Pinochet in Chile, where the Americans put him in after a coup. Yeah.
Well, that's an installation by a foreign power. There's been a fair few of those as well. But this actually goes back a long way. When I first qualified nearly 30 years ago, most of my work was in organisational psychology. So I observed Australian managers working a lot, and I'd already been in the workforce for nearly 30 years at that time. And so I'd had a lot of experience with Australian managers. As a salesman, I drifted from job to job to job to job because I didn't tolerate stupidity or bastardry very well at all. And the moment that they acted in what I believed to be an improper, unethical, or an unfair way, I would just instantly go out and get another job. I was a really good salesman. I got jobs at interview. And people would say, "Gee, we didn't expect to offer somebody a job at the interview." And I'd say, "Well, we wanted a salesman, didn't you?" And that would just confirm that they got the right guy. And I ended up anyway. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
But that's the entrepreneur in you. That's the black sheep in you. That the entrepreneurs don't like to be governed. So this is maybe one of the issues why you're on this podcast, because I was the same. Yep. I had the same problem.
I think there's truth in that, Michael. There are some people who are not comfortable being parented. They want to be independent. And I don't know whether that's genetic. I vividly remember my wonderful father. I was so blessed to have him as a father. Most of my appearance in genetic material, gratefully, has come from my father. But he told me in my early teens that he believed the role of a responsible parent was to raise an independent adult who could walk away from you if they wished, but you hoped like hell they didn't. Really, it made such an impact on me as an emerging human.
Yeah,
and that's the sort of thing that coloured my perspectives and made me the kind of a little bit of a rebel that I am. I guess I'm a lot of a rebel. I'll call that. But so what I've watched is, and I've experienced it personally. My first foray into management was in the public service, and I was very rapidly promoted in the public service because I had a strong work ethic. I was cooperative. I respected the rules, and I wanted to deliver 110% from my side of the contract that my employer made with me. And that's all stuff I'm sure I inherited from my dad. And so I found myself in a relatively senior managerial position with a large number of people reporting to me, and it became an incredibly efficient division that I managed. And when I left, they threw a huge going away party.
Wow!
And there was only one person they didn't invite, and that was me. They hated me, Michael. And I didn't know it. They didn't have the courage to tell me that I was being what the left now calls a fascist. I was
Sorry,
these people.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you, but that's
great.
I
get it. It was
me.
At the time, it was a devastating experience, but they did me an enormous favour. What they showed me is that people don't want honesty and integrity and and values, people want what they can get away with. Those taxi drivers with the back of their cars jacked up, taking advantage of a bureaucratic system, that's the cunning of the human animal taking advantage, because we come from millions of years of survival of the fittest. And so we are a very clever animal. Even the dumbest human can still be very cunning and clever.
Let me tell you, I have the perfect example of that. Years ago, I was a waiter in this massive restaurant where this was like all you could eat. People would just come in here, stuff their faces and go. And we had one waitress. It was just this waitress. And intellectually, she was like the equivalent of a couple of bricks. I remember it was when La Bamba came out. Or it was some of the La Bamba film. Remember La Bamba? Richie.
Ricky, I know. Valance.
Richie someone. Anyway, she looked at it and said, and then she saw the actor who'd played him in the film, and she said, "Oh, he's dead." I said, "What do you mean he's dead?" She goes, "I saw the film. He died in a plane crash." I said, "That was a film. He's an actor playing." She goes, "Oh, no." So she thought it was a documentary. So but when each of us had an enormous section, and what they had to do at the end, the last shift of the night, you had to make fans out of the serviettes. So we all got super fast at it. We go, boom. I can still do it in my sleep because we did so many. But she'd be really, really slow, and she'd go, "I'm sorry, can you just help at that table? Oh, could you just help at that table?" And so she'd have all these people going, "She's such an idiot. She's such an idiot." And they'd be doing a job, and then they turn around, she's at the bar having a drink. They're all doing her work.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? So you got a question. In the end, I was going, "No, you're too clever for me, girl."
So that was my first experience, and I was a totalitarian manager. I watched these people like a hawk. I kept them honest. I think I'm probably the only person in the public service who's ever fired somebody over being repeatedly late. And I would say to them, the only thing you're expected to do is turn up.
Yeah.
And you can't even do that. So anyway, so that put me off management for most of my career. And it wasn't until I went spectacularly broke in my mid to late 50s and I'd actually been retired for 5 years. I thought I was rich enough to retire at 52.
Wow.
So it took me 5 years to prove that I wasn't. And then I was on the bones of my arse and I had to find a job again. And in order to meet my financial needs, I had to take on a psychological management role. And so now here I was, having to employ and manage, I think it was ultimately a team of 17 psychologists. And I'd learned an awful lot over the years, particularly in my journey to becoming a psychologist. So I went from being the totalitarian manager to being the humanist manager. And
that must have been fascinating, because no offense, but if someone finds out that someone's a psychologist, their shields go up. What's he thinking of me? I'm telling you from how they're thinking. What's he thinking? Does he know my father didn't love me? Can he pick that up? Does he think I'm gay? Am I gay? All these issues. But if you've got 12 psychologists together, oh my Lord. Well, what do you mean by that?
And I've had that happen to me so many times in the last 30 years. You're having a great conversation with somebody and they say, "So what do you do for a living?" And so I'm a psychologist. They go, "Who else can I talk
right.
to?"
I didn't mean that. That was just I just heard.
So I became a humanist manager the second time around, and it was spectacularly successful. So I've had personal experience of being the totalitarian and personal experience of being the libertarian. And I've got to tell you, it's so much easier to be a libertarian, and the results are so much better.
Yeah.
Because when you're the totalitarian, you've got to catch the guy in his garage with the taxi jacked up. Otherwise, you'll never know. Because nobody will dob on him. Even somebody who knows, they won't say anything.
Yeah,
and so that means when you're the totalitarian, it becomes them against you. And your entire workforce is looking ways to mess you up. They're kind of helping each other out. Oh, he never goes around into that part of the building. If you want to go and have a smoke without saying anything, just go down there. You'll never go there. And it's the most awful role to be in. And I wonder about the personality defects that drive people to try to be totalitarian leaders or managers. Now, as a 20-year-old, I did it out of naivety. I thought it was my job to manage people, but there's two completely different definitions of management. And you're going to follow Sue? Yeah, that's
I'm
awesome.
doing it. I'm listening. Yeah. I'm listening. I can do both.
So I think there's an old saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's very good, Michael. I would employ you if I owned a restaurant, mate.
Yeah, it is something like that. We'd finish it.
Yep. So
that's a really interesting lesson to learn, though, to be able to swap, because most people can only govern one way. If they're a totalitarian here, they'll be the same somewhere else, and there'll be an arsehole somewhere else. You know what I mean? So to have a chance to learn to do it a different way is speaks of your character.
And thank you, I appreciate that, and that's the kind of person I would like to be perceived to be. So that's very welcome feedback, and I appreciate it. I don't know how well I deliver it outside of these conversations, but I try. But what you just touched on there, and I think there are many little points that differentiate us and the people who are part of our tribe, who are watching this conversation and contributing conversations, which I'm sure I've said many times. I don't read the comments that come down the bottom. So if something really important comes, if someone writes in, Lindsay's got a boogie hanging out of his nose, you've got to tell me, Michael, okay?
Maybe.
But I think one of the most difficult things humans have the opportunity to do is engage in self-initiated change, is to become a different and hopefully better person.
Yeah.
When I look
at it's hard. It's fulfilling, but it takes effort.
It definitely does. And the developmental stages that we tend to go through in our becoming adults tend to finish in our late 20s, early 30s. And at that moment, we have become the person we are likely to be for the rest of our lives in general. Now that's awesome when it works. It's brilliant when it works. The idea of just accidentally becoming an awesome person and meeting your high school sweetheart and marrying them and having perfect children and having a fulfilling career and end up being grandparents, Vera, Chuck, and Dave on your knee and all those sort of things. That's what we all hope for, but almost nobody gets it. They're very rare. I'm sure you've known one or two people like that in your life who have that perfect trajectory of life. I've known two or three in my life.
Yes, some, not many so much now, but in the past I did. I think the most content human being I ever met was a guy called Lenny. He was clearly just on the spectrum, and he was way before vaccines. You couldn't blame vaccines on him. He was just, and his father was, so he grew up in the house. He was born in the house. He never left the house until he basically died. His father wanted him to be something else, but he just wanted to drive trams. He drove trams for 56 years, and he was really, really slow. And because he got older, but he'd stop for anyone. We used to say that he'd stop for bins. And if you got behind him in your tram, you just took it easy because, you're going to be 20, 30 minutes late because he's already late. Yeah. But he told me, I said, why do you do it, Len? And he says, you just find something you love and you just do it. And that's what he found. He found it very early. Yeah. And he did it his whole life. And he was really never got married, never this, wore his proper uniform every day. You actually met someone who was happy. And he'd sit there. He was so out of touch. You talk about horses, and he goes, Farlap was a good horse. So I'm going, Farlap. He's been dead like 50 years, man. Or he'd bring up TV because he never watched it. And he'd go, honest to God, I'm not making this up. He'd go, I like Laurel and Hardy. I'm going, their kids are dead. Not them, their kids are dead. And then all he'd eat was from the vending machine, which is that's the reason you're still alive, Len. You're so full of preservatives, you're never going to die. But he was happy. And you just couldn't take it from him. He was just content. I didn't have that. I was had a hungrier soul than he did. So, but
Let
I
me put
did
a
wonder what that would be like.
let me put a question to you, Michael.
Sure.
If I could guarantee you that you would have a happy life like him, but that it would be a life that is a tenth of the life you've currently got, but you would be happy. And all you've got to do is have a frontal lobotomy for it. All you've got to do is sacrifice your intelligence. Would you be willing to do that, Michael?
No.
Well,
No,
there you go.
I like
This
who
is
I am.
the
Yeah.
intelligence is
But
a
I don't
two-edged
like who I am
sword.
because it's always good. It's like everything. I'm like everyone here. I know Wayne. I love watching Wayne. I think he's probably the funniest podcaster, the most profound podcaster in Australia. And it's, how would you say it? It's, life is complex, it's messy, but I enjoy it. And I'm
Yep.
sort of, I've been through, like lots of people, I've been through very dark periods where I didn't think I'd get through. You know, I had loads of time. I don't have it anymore, but I spent a lot of my life with, like, I was the driver and suicide was sitting in the back seat going, "We there yet? We there yet?" And you go, "Fuck off." And to be honest, you know, but it was there. You couldn't get rid of him because, but a lot of it wasn't the hardest thing I faced was never the tragic moments in your life. The hardest moments that used to push me over the edge was mediocrity. What made Len happy drove me nuts. You
Yep.
know, yeah,
And that's the curse of intelligence. That they're without maligning, without putting Len down at all, and with obviously without ever having met him, I would say the likelihood of him being above average intelligence would be close to zero. That he was a
yeah,
simple soul, and I envy simple souls. Life can. I mean, I look at people living in absolute squalor and poverty, and they're happy, and it's because they're okay with a tiny life.
mm,
And I mean, I know you're destined for great things. You
I don't know
couldn't live a
about that.
tiny life if you wanted to.
What interests me about that, though, there's two things that interest me. One, uh, you meet people who are perpetually late. You always meet them. They're always late. No matter what you do, they're always late. You know, if they're coming over for dinner, you say, "Oh, it's at 6." It's actually at 7 because you know they'll be an hour late. There's a chance they might turn up. And I always think, when they reach the egg, was that the first time they were on time in their entire existence? Or did the egg get lodged over here and everyone ran that way and they're like coming along going, "Oh," and they got lucky? And so, and then there's other people I've met who are not particularly happy. A perfect example was this guy in this job that I had at Postie. He'd been doing the same run for 30 years. He was married in this loveless relationship. I went to his house once because I was actually intrigued by him. I wanted to understand how he survived. And we went to his house. His wife didn't like us being there, I think, because she had a fear. To be honest, my feeling was she had a fear, don't get any ideas in his head, because even though I don't like the fella, he's my perch. He pays the bills. He keeps me here. I've got my own crazy existence. And then and he's very plain, ordinary little guy, just going like this. And he had this train set in his back shed hidden away that was like a wonderland. And that's where he lived. Everything else was just about paying all his duties. And then he'd come, little people, he made his own world. But we took him out to get him drunk one night. And we're 8 o'clock. So, ladies, get ready for this, because this really happened. And we're all sitting there. And we said, "So, Joe, what's your sex life like?" We're just talking about sex life. And he goes, "I haven't had sex for 10 years or over with his partner." And we're like, "Wow." He goes, "Oh, last year she woke me up at 2 a.m. wanting it, but I was so tired, so I just finished it with a finger and turned over and went to bed." And we were just sitting there with our beer going, "Okay." And that's what he said. I swear to God, I'll never forget it. And then he was sitting there and he looked at this stunning looking woman across the bar and he went, "She wants me." And I thought, No, she doesn't want any of us, mate. We're just these old men. But it was fascinating. He was fascinating because he was so different from me. You know what I mean? And he was so different. And even when we had union action, he'd always stay. He'd always protect this little groove that was his life. But he was not happy.
Yeah.
But he was
Okay.
content in his unhappiness.
And I'd like to make a response to what you've just shared, if
Sure.
that's okay.
Sure.
What you've just described is somebody being comfortable in a very uncomfortable comfort zone. Now,
Wow.
we're talking about self-initiated change.
Uh-huh.
In general terms, humans are terrified of change. We will do almost anything to avoid something changing. We will perpetuate our own misery rather than risk going, except for the weirdos, except for the people like you and I and the crazies that are watching this.
Yeah.
We question things. We're curious. We want to push the boundaries. I've said for whatever it is, 58 years I've been in the workforce, I want to feel the ice crack under my feet. I would like to be secure, but I'd rather be on the edge. Now, that's not in general terms normal. That doesn't typify the human race. And we began talking about, do people want to be governed? If it's what they're accustomed to, they will tolerate more and more and more of it rather than go through the pain of giving it up. Have I ever told you the story of
better
the
the devil you
dog?
know, really. That's what you're saying.
I guess so.
This guy's, yeah.
I think the better the devil you know infers that you have evaluated the other, the devil you don't know. And I don't think people who rigidly stay within their own pit of despair, I don't think they've actively evaluated what it would be like to get out of it. Just the concept of getting out of it is unimaginable for them.
Yeah.
So
when I left school really early and I educated myself, I used to go to the library and just get books. And I never heard of George Orwell. I just found his range of books and I started reading them. And I, of course, read 1984, Animal Farm, all those. But I read one, which was my favorite one, called The Clergyman's Daughter. And she was from a very safe family, you know, clergyman's daughter. And I think she got caught kissing a man or something. And then for most of the book, she was on the run with gypsies. And she had this extraordinarily life. It was like her soul had unfurled its wings and she was just flying like crazy. And at the end, because it's Orwell, he's always a miserable bastard. At the end, she ends up, the gypsy lover dies and she ends up back in the clergyman's house. And he's such an incredible writer that the thought of her there back in that house when she flew, it's like an escaped budgie back in the cage, really moved me. Actually, can I take us in another way about being governed, and not only governed but governing? This is, and my mum's going to hate me for this, but this is what she used to do. And so we had a place in Perth, Midland, and it had a huge jacaranda tree in the backyard. And Mum had aviaries, and she became exceptionally clever. And I've written about this. She'd get a cage in the tree because there'd be wild budgies or escaped budgies or parrots, and she'd put seed there, and she'd sit there patiently. And as soon as the bird went in to get the seed, she'd climb the tree, and she's tiny. She's like 4'5" or something. She'd climb the tree, and of course the bird it'd be freaking out, but he couldn't find the entrance. And then she'd put the bird in the cage. And her reasoning was she was keeping it safe. There's hawks, there's this. She was keeping it safe. But there was one particular parrot. I can't remember what it was. It was quite a rare parrot, I think. I have seen him since. We called it Pretty Boy because it was so pretty. All it did until it died was sit on this perch with its face against the wire looking out. Never didn't fly, never sang, never did anything. And I remember thinking, this is really interesting. It's keeping it safe, but this is Australia. You're losing the ability to fly. You're losing the ability to sing. You're losing the ability to fuck up. I don't mean to, but that's part of the joy. You're actually, screwing up and then, learning from the wreckage. All of this was gone. And why I knew the birds wanted out is I remember once, because I wasn't allowed near the cage. She didn't trust me. we had to transfer them. We were little kids. We had to transfer them from one big aviary to another. And I had it in my hand and I let him go. And he flew. He flew like a bat out of hell. And the
And a big
happiest
hawk came down
time,
and went, whoa.
yeah, the happiest time is I got a rabbit, and this is connected. I got a rabbit because I wanted a pet, and I bought it. It was like this big, and I said, "It's going to get much bigger." She goes, "No, about this big." I said, "Okay." And so anyway, I brought it home, and this rabbit grew to. I could have put a saddle on the fucker. It was so big, and
Yeah.
and it was shit propelled. It wanted to go from here to there. It had to shit its way there, and I had to get rid of it. Anyway, I took it back to my folks' place, and they put it in the aviary. And he dug his way out. And not only did he dig his way out, but all her birds escaped.
Oh, wow.
I remember thinking, that's a true story. And I think the end of that story, the funniest thing is her neighbor didn't like it, turned up holding the rabbit by its ears and said, "This is your rabbit." But the thing is, Mum was the state. She was taking these wild birds, and she really believed, and maybe she was right, she really believed that she was protecting them and keeping them safe. But you used to see them only half alive. And that's what I worry about Australians. All this safety, all this safety, all this safety, all this safety. Yet where's the vibrance? One of the last things my daughter said to me was, there's no spark in anybody in her suburb. Everyone's just like this. There's no spark, you know? So there's no question in that, but it's just an observation on what you're saying. But so people not only like governing or being governed, but they want to do it.
Yep. And at the risk of derailing us, I think we've got more to go in this conversation, but I think that story about the rabbit is also quite metaphorical. I think it's a really good metaphor. Many of the totalitarian regimes failed because of an unexpected intervention from the environment. And that, might be the CIA, it might be some charismatic leader, it might be a
war rabbit.
But what I observe in my life and in my practice is that most people allow the environment to determine their trajectory. They buy tax lotto tickets in the hope that the environment will enrich them. They do what they're told in the hope that the environment will look after them. And unlike those birds that your mother cleverly trapped, we should have the ability to evaluate whether or not we're entering a cage. We're an intelligent species in general terms. Even relatively unintelligent humans are vastly more intelligent than almost any other animal on Earth. And so we should be the last animals to be trapped into the cage and ultimately rely on a completely alien species to rescue us from our captivity. But we don't. We let ourselves be captured.
It's
and then we just keep doing the same thing, same shit, different day. It's and I find it really sad because as a species we've got such potential, and most people have got more potential than they actually use. They're just frightened to step out of the golden cage that they're in, and they wait till they retire, and then it's too late. The mortality rate post-retirement is extraordinary.
Especially for men.
Absolutely.
Men. There's things like I used to tell people, that were born with the seeds of greatness in us, but for some reason we've built a society that just suppresses them. And even the tall poppy, if you dare to make one bloom, I'm going to this around us, others will be pulling them down, as if to keep it in place. One thing Australians just love doing is criticizing anybody that's doing anything. They just love it. They want you to fail. They're like, and it all gets back to this great apathy, which we used to call the she'll be right era, to be honest, which has now reached this point where we owe $1 trillion. And well, let's just go on. These are some of the laws coming in today. I got sent a thing today by Thelm in Perth. The Perth now, not only have they taken the guns away from, I think, 70 sovereign citizens, which are not, I truly don't believe they are sovereign citizens, but that's their new word for them. They're after 1,000 more, apparently. Robin was telling me, but now they're going to take your license off you if you post anything. If they see you posting anything about sovereign citizens, they're threatening to take your license from you. So that is very much like England. But that's what we're talking about, governing harder. The AFP have come out with this incredibly strange document. Did you read it?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yep.
And it seems to me that there's anything that they want to go after anyone who threatens social
Threatens
cohesion.
the status quo, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they're going to become the thought police. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was. Did you read it that way? That's what I saw.
Yep.
And you're
definitely.
thinking, well, who's to say that? Who's to say what's cohesive or not? There's and I'm wondering if that's going to lead to us with people coming around arresting us for posts like we're seeing in England. But my question is, how far can these authorities go before Australians go, no? Or are we really a minority of people who have freedom intrinsically in our DNA, just want to think freely? And the others don't want that. They just want the freedom to endure.
There's a couple of things that occur to me that I'm not personally 100% sure on. So I would see you as a potential source of information on this. I can't think of a totalitarian regime that has been overthrown by a populist uprising.
No.
I think what happens is...
Romania?
Ceausescu, you mean?
Yeah, they had a revolution. They had a revolution in Poland and Romania. They had they had the Arab Spring, but that sort of flared up, and then they took control of it again and suppressed them again. But yeah,
and I'm not enough of a historian to talk to that.
No, I'm with you, man.
But my poorly informed view of history is that totalitarianism flares brightly for a while. While their empty promises are being taken by the majority of the people. But eventually the task of running everybody's life, and we've got it a tiny bit here. One of my bête noires is the $1,000 fine for not wearing a seatbelt. Now, if that's not parentalism, what is? Now I will not drive a car without wearing a seatbelt. So I'm not moaning about having to wear a seatbelt.
No.
But if I'm crazy enough to run the risk, there's only one person that I can risk by not wearing a seatbelt, and that's me. So why would they fine me $1,000? And so
bike helmets are the same. Bicycle helmet on a push bike. To me, it's like if I fall off and hit my head, that's my problem.
Okay, but if you've got this parentalist view of the world, and you observe somebody doing something stupid or something that will put themselves in harm's way, like riding a bike without a helmet or driving a car without a seatbelt, if you're that paternalistic totalitarian person, you want to step in and save people from their own stupidity. Now, unfortunately, life sucks. We have existed as a species for millions of years by survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Now, that means the guy who sticks the fork in the electricity socket
See you later.
They remove themselves from the gene pool.
Yeah, or the one that drinks the bleach, where it says, don't drink. We don't need that.
Or Donald Trump says drink bleach, so the Liberals all drink bleach just to be sure. But all those people are doing is making the whole gene pool stronger.
Yeah.
But you can't do that if you want to be a totalitarian. You can't afford to have people like us making our own decisions. You've got to make all of the decisions uniform so everybody lives the same. And that's totalitarian utopia for the rulers. And the other thing that's pretty general about totalitarianism is that the people who are in charge don't live in the privation and squalor that the people that they're in charge of live.
Of course, yeah. That's like the pigs in Animal Farm.
Absolutely. Some animals are more equal than others. Yep.
Yeah.
And
I used to, I've done a lot with Romanian people. I've interviewed them. I actually was friends with a group of Romanian refugees before Ceausescu fell. and they'd swum the Danube to escape. They said they used to come along in boats with a big hook, and if you were swimming, they just pick it up and then just dump you back in. This were their stories. I mean, it was horrific.
Yeah.
And but they said it would never ever fall, never fall, never fall, and then it did. And then I interviewed this woman who said her 17-year-old brother, her mum was begging with him to stay, but her 17-year-old brother said, because they were going, it was a revolution was happening, and he said, I'm either going to come back free, or I'm going to come back, or I'm going to die. I thought that must be the end of totalitarianism, where the people choose death or liberty, then you can't control them anymore. You can't. And she said what happened was after about 2 days, this was 2 or 3 interviews I've done with people all telling me the same story. After 2 or 3 days, the soldiers could not shoot their own people anymore. And that's when they turned around and they started shooting their masters. But for 2 or 3 days, they were shooting their own people. And this is
like
what
the
I'm
Victorian
saying with
police
the AFP coming in, and what we've seen with the police and all this terrible stuff we've seen with the police, especially in Melbourne, is how far are the police willing to go before they go, I can't do this to my brothers and sisters anymore? Or have they gone, no, I'm in a part of a totalitarian system now. These are the rules. I follow the rules. And the rules is I get to brutalize anybody that my masters tell me to brutalize. And that's morally okay.
And I've referenced the last line of 1984 a couple of times in conversations with you. Do you remember what the last line of 1984 is?
Oh, no. Damn, good question.
Chilling. And it goes to the heart of what we're talking about.
No, I can't remember, sorry.
Winston suddenly realized that he loved Big Brother.
Yeah.
Isn't that scary?
Yeah. And he's sitting in that cafe, and the movie was astounding. John Hurt was astounding in that role. And
John Hurt's brilliant.
Yeah, but the film, the book, the film, I've read it's one of the only books where I've read a few times because the writing is so remarkable, but it's just, And yet we grew up in the era where George Orwell gave us all these warnings, and yet all that's happened is our leaders have used it as an IKEA instruction manual, and we're going, okay, let's do it. You know?
And this, once again, this is, I want to believe that it's the difference between people like you and I and the people that we're engaging with through podcasts such as this, is that even if we suddenly found ourselves in a position of absolute power, I want to believe that we would be motivated, and I want to believe this, I don't know whether I do, that I want to believe that we would want to exercise that power in a very soft way, in a way that actually benefited the whole of our society. But the people who rise to totalitarian heights are cut from a different cloth. They and it can be either psychopathic or sociopathic, but either way, it includes an almost sublime indifference to the suffering of others.
Yeah.
That's
what we've seen.
I'll tell you an off-color joke that I don't think I've told you before, and it's not too bad. It's just a bit risque. This guy, through a whole set of circumstances that can make the joke go for 45 minutes, and I'm going to make it go for 2 minutes, finds himself being taken on a guided tour of a harem. And so he goes from the top floor all the way down, and he eventually gets to the very bottom basement floor, and it's a stark, dank, fetid room, and all there is in this room is a substantial plank resting on 2 brick pillars, and lying on the floor below the plank are 2 bricks, and in the middle of the plank there's about a 4-inch hole through the middle of it. And the guy said, "Oh, what's this room for?" And his guide said, "This is where we make the eunuchs." And the guy said, "How does that work?" And he said, "Well, we get the prospective eunuch to disrobe, and he squats up on the plank, and his dangly bits hang down through the hole, and we just bring the 2 bricks together." And the guy said, "Oh my God, wouldn't that hurt?" And his guide said, "No, well, not unless you get your thumbs caught between the bricks."
That is a totalitarianistic joke. That is awesome.
That's the
That is
rationale of
so
totalitarianism.
clever.
As long as I
Yeah.
don't get my thumbs caught between the bricks,
Yeah.
castrating you is painless.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
and
that's where we are. You see that in there's Jordan Peterson was saying, if you want to see the banality of evil, or you want to experience the banality of evil, get on YouTube and type in the voices or the recordings of the Wehrmacht. I think Wehrmacht is it called, the German soldiers who were shooting the Jews before they erected the death camps. And
Wehrmacht.
yeah, and they talk. They've got actors reading out, but their language is all about them. Yeah, well, I had to do it. I couldn't leave the job to the next soldiers, and they never once have a single ounce of sympathy for the
Yep.
people that except once where this one guy, and I'll never forget it. Just these certain things that haunt you. Goes, oh yeah, I used to shoot with my friend, and we do the women and the kids, and we try to shoot the kids first because it's not fair for the kids if they it's if they watch their mother die, and you're thinking. And it's like you get this bit of information and you can't fit it anywhere in your soul or your head or anywhere. This is the stuff that intrigues us. This is why I think people watch. There's something about Ed Gein on at the moment, the serial killer, and it's a big hit. But I don't think we all want to be the serial killer. But when there's people like that, we just can't. It's so far removed from us. We're intrigued by it because, you might have some crazy fantasies when you're a kid or something, but most of us aren't serial killers. These are a really almost different breed from us,
Well,
and it's remarkable.
Yeah, can I interject something there?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because I'm not 100% sure I fully accept that premise that not everybody's capable of being a serial killer.
Yeah, well, actually, the Wehrmacht showed that these guys were serial killers. If they're shooting 1,000 Jews a day, you're in, man. You're in the club.
And it's not now that's one example of ordinary people becoming serial killers. They were their masters successfully othered the Jews, so the Jews were no longer seen as worthwhile human beings. They were seen as something less than animals.
Anti-vaxxers.
The rationale behind the gas chambers was that the Jews were going to die of starvation anyway, so we did them a favour by gassing them. And so we've got the othering, that you're actually putting down rabid animals, not humans. You're doing them a favour, so that salves your conscience. And if you don't do it, somebody else will. They were the three classic rationales for these ordinary people doing extraordinarily evil things.
Yeah.
Now, that's
I stand corrected, Lindsay. I'm going with you, actually. I must be looking it through the prism of me, but I stand corrected. I go with you.
Not fully though, Michael. There's a wrinkle on this. Again, I won't know unless I'm ever put in that position. Now, I had to think really hard during COVID as to how far I would push my dissenting views. That all healthcare professionals were mandated to get injected, and we were already totally sold on not being injected. And because I have a private practice, they didn't extend the mandate to people in individual private practices. But they didn't tell us that until the day before the mandates were to come in. So they put all of that unknown pressure on us, where they even said people like me wouldn't be allowed to do telehealth if they didn't get injected. And so Sarah and I had quite a number of really deep conversations. And I was almost at the point where if they'd have not reversed, because our financial well-being is completely reliant upon my income. And as much as there are envious parts of your lifestyle, but at this point in my life, I don't want to live in a bus, Michael.
Yeah, fair
enough. So that, and I'm not being critical in any way. I'm just saying I did, and so I almost got to the point where my environment was able to override my good sense and force me to do something that I didn't want to do. So we all have a point. A lot of people
face that.
And most people, and I count myself in this, don't have the intestinal fortitude, the guts, to find a hill they're willing to die on. Now, and that's not true. I would have been willing to die on the hill of dissidence, on the hill of defiance, but I'm not willing to sacrifice my family on that hill.
No, that's right.
So it means it's no longer a sacrifice of my own body. It's now a sacrifice of the people that I love. So the coercion that brings people to do things that are contrary to their will is complicated. Now, I don't think the Wehrmacht was an example of those people being forced into doing it at gunpoint. I mean, there's a wonderful movie called Enemy at the Gate. I've seen it 2 or 3 times. It's about
the sniper,
the Russian sniper against the Germans.
Yeah, Jude Law, I think.
Jude Law, yes. And when they get off the train to go into battle, they've only got 1 gun for every 2 soldiers.
Yeah, that's correct.
And they've said, you've all got to rush into battle, and you keep an eye on the guys with the guns, and as soon as they drop, you've got a gun. and they said, and don't forget that we're the officers, we'll be behind you, and we've got pistols with multiple bullets in them. If we see your face, we'll put a bullet in it. If you turn around and run, you're dead anyway, so you may as well run towards the enemy. I mean, that's the ultimate coercion, isn't it?
It's extraordinary.
And this circles back to a thing that you and I have touched on again and again and again. I do not want to stand on some high moral ground and judge the people who were either coerced or compliant during COVID.
Yeah.
I want to understand, and I want to be compassionate towards them. And I want to realise that, yep, some of them were willing idiots. Some of them, I had coffee with a wonderfully intelligent guy today, and he's almost completely up to date with his COVID shot.
Just to interject, though, I have to say, if I was, say, I'd been early 40s and my kids were really young, and if I'd had a really big mortgage, and I'm not so sure that I would be where I am now.
I think we need to.
I was environmentally fortunate that my kids were at an age that, they were young teenagers. We were already broke, so we had nothing to lose because we were artists. And all I had to do was walk away from my career. And so I don't know how I would have done if I was in that other test too. And I do feel for those who were in it. There's so many people have told me that they were crying when they got it, or after they got it, they went out and cried,
And what we're talking about now is there, but for the grace of God, go I. And so,
correct.
And I mean, I've had many clients who did go to the wall over the shots, who have lost their homes and marriages because they just weren't willing to allow that substance into their bodies.
Yeah,
and
I've met them too.
But I wonder about that. I mean, at what point do you say I am willing to sacrifice my own well-being for the well-being of the people that I love? And that's an individual choice. And whilst I have admiration.
Finish what you're saying, and then I've got a question for you. I'll write down. Keep going.
Okay. Whilst I've got enormous admiration for the people that did stand up and say no and lost everything as a result, it still it doesn't sit 100% right with me. I'm not.
Can I put something to you? Sure. We live in a country where the one goal for most people, I think it's fading now with the young because they can't do it. But for our generation, it was, why don't you have a house? If you hadn't bought a house, if you're renting, what's wrong with you? It's like a second-class citizen. You know what I mean? So that was it. But how do you think we would have gone if houses were just unaffordable? We were all renters, so it didn't really matter. Whether we were poorer, I wonder if they would have been as successful with it. Because I know in England, I talked to this England unionist guy once, a Pommy, but he'd been a massive unionist. And he said, this is what happened in England with the unions. When people were renting their council flats, they were militant. But how they destroyed the militancy is they allowed them to buy the house. Once they had the home and they had something to lose, they all complied.
Okay. I think that's powerful and insightful. I think there's another factor. I was born in 1950, so I didn't get to the point of looking at the housing market until the late 1960s, 1969, probably even 1970. I think my then wife and I bought our first block of land when I was probably 20. But that was still in an era where your home was not considered an asset, where it was a thing, and nobody expected to make money out of their family home. Capital gains were almost zero. So, so in 1969, when my first block of land I bought was in Dandenong. It was a new subdivision, cost $5,200 on vendor terms, so the price was padded to cover the interest. But we actually looked at the house opposite the house my father built, and we could have bought that whole house, 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, quarter-acre block, double garage, all that stuff, $19,000. Now, the people that if we'd have wanted it, we decided not to go through with it. But if we'd have bought that house, the people we bought it from paid about $17,000 for it. So they'd lived there for 15 years, and the value of the house had only gone up by a couple of $1,000s.
Wow.
Now, by the time I was in my late 20s, the house that my then wife and I originally built I've got a feeling we ended up having to buy either $15,000 or $17,000 to build a 24-square, 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with looking out over the bay.
Beautiful.
Now, by the time we got out of that, it had tripled in value in less than 10 years.
That would have been the Keating era.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I remember being in Perth, and someone was trying to buy a house, and they were going, "I can't keep up. The prices are just going up literally weekly."
Yeah,
you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now, if you went to buy that house that we sold for, I think, $65,000, if you went to buy that house now, it'd be $3 million. So that's one of the factors that changed it. And the other factor that you're referencing, the albatross around your neck of a mortgage, I think the thing that changed there was council rents were fixed. I don't think there was an inflationary element in rentals back in England in those days.
Oh, no, they hardly ever went up, or just a little bit, you know what I mean?
But once they privatised house ownership, and once they allowed people to purchase their own homes, now all of a sudden that whole worldwide, you've got to make money out of your home. And that's one of the most wicked things that's happened to us. I think our houses really should be commodities.
We become debt slaves now. I mean, to literally get into a mortgage now, which I could think of nothing worse. I have no idea what would a mortgage repayments be on a $1.5 million house. You know, it's just.
Well, I mean, Labor is saying, we'll get you into your first home for a 5% deposit. If your first home is $1 million, that means you need a $50,000 deposit for 5%. And the interest on $1 million loan, the interest alone is $70,000 a year. And who can afford that?
Do you know, I've said this before, so sorry people have heard this story, but as you go through life, you just hear things that are like little sort of snapshots of society. And it was a funeral director I was working with who'd quit. And I said, "Why'd you quit?" He goes, "I got sick of picking up men who'd taken their own lives in McMansions. They lived in these huge mansions, and they obviously this was the only way they could escape. So it was like basically my mum's cage in the tree, except it's a McMansion. It's got everything they need. They're completely safe, numerous toilets, a TV studio or a movie studio, everything like this. But it's not actually, and this is the crux that they find once they're in the cage, it's not conducive to their souls.
Okay.
There's a hunger in their souls that
come back at you with something.
And its products don't fill.
If you were in that situation and your life was so empty and unrewarding and horrible, and somebody said, "How about if you own nothing but you'll be happy?"
It's interesting, isn't it? Shame is not like a balance. You seem you have to go like, you're with Biden, but the only way out is to vote Trump. Isn't there a middle ground? There's can't I have at least a bus to live in? But that's that was the thing. And I myself, I was married once, and before we got married, we were both had businesses. I had a little cafe called Mr. Griffith's Cafe. Wasn't doing very well, but I had it. She was doing well. We were doing well, and we were going out for dinner a lot. We were having fun, and then she bought a house, and suddenly that's where I got fat because all the money went to the house, and I used to just come home from work and sit there watching the telly, and there was nothing else to do but eat, and I just
Yep.
ballooned. And I ballooned so much that when people met me, they go, "Hi, Michael, you got fat." They wouldn't even say you put on a bit of weight. They just use, honestly, they say you got fat. And it
Yep.
took me a while to get rid of it, but I was so unhappy. And yet everyone would come around and go, "Oh, look at this fantastic house. Oh my God, you must be so happy." And I wasn't. I felt like I'd accidentally acquired somebody else's dream. My dream
Yep.
was out there. Somebody else was being a writer. I hate writing. I don't like this writing and make a living as a writer. I hate the thing. Why did I get here? I just want to own a house in the suburbs. And I'm here going, "Hey, man, I'll swap." But I actually, when I left her, and this was, I picked her up and I said to her, "I can't do this. I can't live here." Because I walked out into the street and I thought, if I close my eyes, nothing will change. That woman over there killing these beautiful yellow flowers, the trumpet flowers, which the seen as weeds, and she was just perpetually killing them. She'll still be killing those beautiful yellow flowers, and I'll look like I do now instead of the young man I was. So I had a little 250 motorbike and a laptop computer, I think, and I just said, "It's all yours, all of it, the house, everything." I gave it all away. I said, I just can't do this. I'm really sorry," and I left. And which is, probably a crap thing to do. And we didn't have any kids, but I just couldn't do it. I felt like I was dying.
Yep.
That's how it felt. And I
Yep.
felt it's, what I had the choice of doing was actually remaining there as a dead person, but the dead person I was would still be able to go to work, could still be able to pay bills, but something inside of me was forever lost. And what led to me leaving was she knew I was depressed, because what I'd done is I'd quit writing. I'd been trying to be a writer for ages, couldn't get anything published. I used to have a joke that I couldn't get my eulogy published. They'd send it in, they go, "This is good, but we're not accepting these sort of death notices at the moment. Good luck with another paper." And so I got this really furious anger. And I just said, "Okay, that's it. I quit. I'm not writing it. Not writing a thing anymore. No, I'm not doing it. It's like an addiction. I'm not doing it." And suddenly, within months, I had my own job, and within a year, I was married. I was in a house. I had a white fucking picket fence. I couldn't believe it. I had a white picket fence, and my mum is like talking to everyone about me. "Oh, Michael, yeah, he's in his house. He's got a white picket fence. It's really lovely." And then suddenly, I've left, and she's the one that all the parents are going, "So, how's Michael doing?" He's pissed off. And but I just could not do it. And what killed the relationship, even though I was very fond of her, what killed the relationship and what killed that whole life is she could see I was very, very, very down. And she said, "I've got an idea. Why don't you start writing again?" And that was it. As soon as I started writing again, it was like wings were coming out of me, and I was there, and then I was gone. Yeah. So everyone who says I'm this great person, I am not. I am not. I am. I do not have a history of greatness at all. I'm just a human being who's trying to stay as vibrantly alive as I can. I just want to reach the end of my life as though I'd written a novel through action that was worth reading in the long sleep. And sitting in a house I didn't like, or living in a job I didn't want to do, did not equate to a novel that I'd wanted to read. So it's very selfish, but...
Can I jump in?
What's that?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, it's all yours, man. I finished.
Okay. Our general theme in this conversation relates to are people predisposed to being parented rather than living an independent life?
Yeah.
And we've both referenced a couple of times that we are representative of and within a community which would rather be independent but we're the minority. We're the minority.
That is the concern.
Yep.
And in a world
I-
where the meek are taking over, that is a concern.
Yeah. So I don't think the creeping totalitarianism that we are so alarmed about is at all alarming to the general majority of the population.
That's why I totally agree with you. When you look around, they all seem blissfully happy. I don't think it bothers them. More rules, no problem.
That bird that you mentioned in your mother's aviary. Do you remember that bird because all the other birds appear to just flit around and sing and be okay?
Yeah. Like nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
Flying here, chipping away, chip, chip, chip. Oh yeah, look at this, and they're just there. Where this one, I guess that one was me. You know, that was My one regret is that I just didn't get in there and let it go. But you know, if chances are that would have come. She might be 4'5". You don't want to let her birds go, I tell you.
Yeah, but the point I'm getting to here is that many members of our community, me included, I'm looking forward to a time when a critical number of the population have become alarmed, alert, disenchanted, frightened, angry, whatever, to the point where we get that shift that delivers us from evil. That's now, but I don't believe it's going to happen. I want it to happen, and I want to be part of it. But looking at the way most totalitarian regimes end, they end with a whimper, not with a bang. They govern themselves to death.
Yeah, I actually have talked to a lot of those people about this. My Dennis Borchos, or Dr. Borchos in Colac. If you're listening, Dennis, I love you. And you know I do. And he told me that what happens is that no one gives a shit in those sort of systems. After 60 years, the last 20 years, no one cares. No one tries. There's no entrepreneurs. There's no point trying to start anything. People just go through the motions, and society decays and grinds to a halt. Like your taxi driver with this. You have enough people doing that, there's no taxis, and suddenly it cannot continue because you need the entrepreneurs. This in our society now, these ostracized people who think for themselves and have decided that they're not going to be told what to do and prepared to put up with the social cost. These are the people that become the architects of the future if you let them go. They start businesses. They make things happen, you know.
But they're ungovernable.
Yeah, that's right. And so we said that's what happens. It just, that's what I'm seeing. Like there's so much regulation in this country now that's the same as there. You can't starting a business. Oh my God, really? The amount of regulation and all these things you got to go through. Oh, just get out the way so we can make some money and build things. And that's what we're seeing. You know, I remember we were going to get a theater company before COVID. We thought, let's get our own little theater company. That was our goal for Rahana and I. And we found this great place. And the council said to me, oh, you'll need to get this permit. I said, how long does it take? I said, about 18 months. I said, 18 months. So what we've got to rent the place. And I think it was like $1,500 a week. We got to rent the place for $1,500 a week for 18 months on the hope that you might give us a permit. And she said, yep. And they were councils. They didn't care. She said, yep. And I said, that's insane. Who's got that sort of money? And you realize this is what was stopping innovation. This is actually what's actually causing why the lucky country is losing its luckiness. Because, and I'm not saying we're there yet. We're still a prosperous country, can say to Bangladesh or other things, but we're heading there fast. And the reason we are is there's too much bureaucracy on top of everything, you know, and basically governing us too much. Almost, you've got a government this big, you'd almost question that they're governing us this much with this much regulation to justify their own existence.
Well, that's certainly part of it. But the main, in an attempt to steelman it, in an attempt to look for some valid reason why they do what they do, Sarah and I stumbled on the term parentalism recently, because I don't like the term paternalism because it infers maleness.
Yeah.
But parentalism is an anagram of paternalism, and I think it's far more descriptive. Now,
absolutely.
So if I'm the parent of a 5-year-old, I need to be constantly vigilant because my 5-year-old is unaware that fire's hot, that it's dangerous to run on the road, that strange dogs might bite you. So I have to be the parent.
Yes.
And it's a holy obligation. But if I wrap my child in cotton wool, and if I'm constantly there, I vividly remember when our only child was probably 5. I facilitated him climbing a tree that he couldn't have climbed on his own. The lower branches were too high. So I put a ladder up, and as he climbed the ladder, I followed him up the ladder so he couldn't fall off the damn ladder. And I remember standing underneath the tree waiting to catch him if he fell. And it was a shocking moment. I thought, and I went and sat down, and my wonderful wife said, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "I'm letting him enjoy himself." But she said, "What if he falls out of the tree?" I said, "He'll break his arm. And he'll be more careful the next time he's in a tree."
That's
and
great.
We both know it was an existential crisis for both of us.
I get it.
It wasn't that I was sitting down relaxing thinking, wow, I'm now the libertarian parent letting my child take risks and go stronger as a result. I was sitting there thinking, I am in so much fucking trouble if that kid falls out of that tree.
But the thing is, though, even though you would be, this is how the kid learns.
I agree, Mike. That's the point I'm making, Michael.
This is life. I totally agree with you. I'm the generation just following in your way. Yeah, go ahead.
If you are a parentalist government, if you are a government who believes that the population's too fucking stupid or too ignorant or too lazy to look after itself, then you do not want some bright spark to come along and start a theatre company up in a local hall that could burn down. Oh my God, what would happen if you let them do that? You
wouldn't have enough toilets or car parks. What would happen?
All of that stuff. That's parentalism. And it is well-intentioned, soft totalitarianism.
Yeah.
And it only becomes a problem when it evolves, where it moves from the well-intentioned parentalist governor to the guy that inevitably inherits the reins from him, who is now some psychopath or sociopath who sees a way to feather his own nest, his or her own nest, by taking advantage of these people who are acting like children.
Yeah. Because I was the generation just after you, really coming up in your wake. And we had, I was a helicopter parent when the kids were young. I remember thinking, why you're a helicopter parent here? You know what I mean? Back off. And we did do it in the end. And, but you could agree, you could see that the children themselves were wanting to learn. They were born robust. You know what I mean? They could actually survive these things. They could survive the falls. They could, and now, so what you're claiming is basically the government now is helicopter parenting us and getting worse at it. And actually, instead of going, no, they don't need us. Look, let's get smaller. Let's get much smaller government. And let's just get the Aussies back to what they're doing best. Because the civilization Australians built, all these country towns from Burke to Tom Price, they weren't built by humans that were being helicopter parented by the government. These were built by entrepreneurs who just went out there like Broken Hill and built a community in the desert themselves.
Yeah, but
and that's in our DNA. And this is kind of what we need to get back to now. We need to get back, because we got $1 trillion worth of debt. It's getting back to letting us innovate, letting us experiment, letting us fail, and letting us pick up the pieces and start businesses and flourish, because we want to flourish. We want to be alive. That's my interpretation, actually. They probably don't. But
Michael, I really want to invest in what you're saying. I want that entrepreneurial, freedom-loving, risk-taking. I want that to be part of the Aussie DNA.
Yeah.
Sadly, the bit of our programming that we inherit from our parents is about 40%. So that means I'm about 40%, a random 40% of my parents lives in me.
Yeah.
Now that means my grandparents were my grandfather was born in 1869. He was a drover who had his leg torn off in a terrible horse accident. And so he then made his living as a handyman and gardener with a wooden leg. And then he eventually became a chauffeur. He drove, I think it was the first Stanley steamer to have existed in Melbourne. He was a rich guy's chauffeur. And the generation before that were potters. So, they subsistence potters, basically.
Yeah.
However, I'm now about to turn 75. That means in my lifetime, there have been a further 2 generations exist. So I'm a boomer. And I've seen the Gen Xers and the millennials and now the Gen Zs come along. That's 4 generations. It can get bred out of you within 4 generations, Michael.
Isn't that extraordinary? Yeah. Because can you imagine when your grandfather or great-grandfather, be grandfather, was there with his leg torn off, there would have been no flying doctor.
No NDIS.
No NDIS, none of this.
And I've got to tell you a little story about my grandfather. You will know Toorak, a very richy area in Melbourne.
Yeah.
He was the gardener of one of the mansions in Toorak, and no motor mowers, by the way. So the motor mower that he had was a cast iron rotary mower that had to be pushed by this
with a wooden leg.
And he was 50, either 54 or 56. I think it must have been 56 when my father was born. My father was the last of 6 children. And so this elderly man with a wooden leg was mowing a grand estate in Toorak with a cast iron push mower. Now, I don't know whether you've ever used one of these mowers, and the ones that you buy in Bunnings.
Twice. They're hard work.
Okay. They are hard work. I pushed one for years. We owned one as a family. But when you want to go from one bit of lawn down the driveway to the next bit of lawn, there's a trick you can do, which is turn them upside down, and there's no resistance. The blades don't turn when the wheels are running backwards.
All right. Yep, I get it. Yeah.
And so here's this man in his late 50s with a wooden leg going from the backyard to the front yard, pushing the mower upside down, and the house owner, what would now be a billionaire, coming out and calling out. I changed my name when I married Sarah. So for the first 40 odd years of my life, I was Lindsay Matthews. And so my father and my grandfather both had the last name of Matthews.
Okay.
And this wealthy prick came out of his backyard seeing this 55-odd elderly man. And he said, "Matthews, you'll wear the wheels out doing that. Carry it from the backyard to the front yard."
Oh.
And so, according to family legend, now these cast iron mowers would have weighed 40 kilos.
Yeah, easy.
So this elderly man with a wooden leg picked the damn thing up and carried it to the front yard.
Wow.
At 13, my father worked in a foundry, and he was, and what do they call the gunk that floats on top of the molten metal? Slag. His job was to ladle the slag off the pools of molten metal before it got poured into the molds in this foundry. He was 13.
Yep.
He was 13 years of age doing this, right? He had one of these big ladles full of molten crap. It was metal, but not pure metal.
Yeah,
someone jogged his arm, and a great dollop of this molten metal went down his trousers and into his boot. 13 years of age.
Jesus.
And now he was born in 1923. So this was 1936, the middle of the Depression.
Wow.
And he knew that all he could do was take 2 minutes to pull the boot off, peel the now solid metal off his badly burnt ankle, put the boot back on, and finish his shift. Because if he didn't, there's 100 people waiting at the gate to take his job.
Yeah,
my dad carried that scar for his whole life, and he never told that story with any rancor or ill feeling or anger. Yeah. It was just a thing. And so we've got these, the generations prior to me had incredible stoicism. They had fortitude. They They just got on and did what they had to do, and that's the Aussie spirit that you're talking about.
Is that because the environment demanded the environment? That was the environment then, and
Yes,
we've
yes, Michael.
now we've built this ridiculous environment where I think I saw someone has been arrested because they or sacked, some teacher or something I saw, because he used the wrong pronoun for some kid.
Yep.
And even though he apologized, the kids all took a vote, and you're just thinking, because he offended him, that it's, you know,
Talk
you're
about the
watching
lunatics in charge of the asylum.
yeah, well, that's what it's like. You're watching the Senate estimates at the moment, and you're watching these people go, so you're discriminating against natural born women, and this, I think the minister, the woman in charge, is, she's on almost $500,000 a year. The woman in
I saw
charge of
that, yeah.
anti-discrimination
It's
actually
Malcolm
says,
Roberts there.
yeah, she actually said, I don't know what a biological man is.
Yep. Unbelievable. Yep.
$500,000 can make you sort of see what they want to see. 2 + 2 equals whatever you wanted it to equal. You give me
Yeah.
$500,000 a year. You know,
Follow the money.
that's a lot of money.
Yep.
That's what, when I was in Canberra, they were all talking about a thing called the golden handcuffs. That is
Yep.
in Canberra. The pays are extraordinary, but it comes at one thing: you've got to sell the bullshit. You can't tell the truth. This is how it is. You've got to be yes people. And this is, I was talking to Lance last night, from the cattle musterer the cattle station owner from Marble Bar, and I was saying, do you think in these past 30 years that the bureaucracy we have now has allowed, instead of allowing people like you to get up, Lindsay, who might have want to get up and change things, vibrant people, they've allowed yes people to rise up. And so we're basically governed by a load of yes people who simply do not have the entrepreneurial spirit that we need. And that's why I wonder if people are gravitating towards Trump. Because I know he's saying, oh, he's not following the rules. Yeah, but that's kind of what people are hungry for. Someone who goes, well, we're not doing that, send the army in.
Do you remember the name of Topher Field's first book?
Good people break bad rules, or good people.
Perfect.
Yeah,
that's it. Good. And he then wrote the sequel, which is Good Christians Break Bad Laws.
Yeah.
And I think that's very telling. But unfortunately, the way we've now got ourselves where, and this whole thing about taking offence.
Oh wow, Penny, that's amazing. Yeah.
What did Penny say?
There's $900,000 a year is her actual wage.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. No, yeah. God, that's mind blowing. I've been advocating to my clients to take responsibility for their own feelings. And I've done this at least once to you. Let's see if you remember it, Michael. See if you can finish this saying for me, Michael. You ready?
Okay, here goes.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but
names will never hurt me.
Now that's what you and I were brought up with, right?
Yes.
But now what we've done, we've now raised a generation which is saying sticks and stones may break my bones, and so can names.
Yeah.
But the reality is, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me unless I let them.
Yeah.
And I've advocated for decades now. Offence can only be taken. It cannot be given. If I say to you that beard looks ridiculous, Michael.
Yeah.
Why would my opinion of your beard matter a whit to you?
Yeah.
Why would you not say?
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Look, I've been called a traitor today. The people are calling me, you're a lefty. And I'm thinking, well, I've actually always been a lefty, to be honest. You know, they sort of put me in the right box, but I've always been kind of a lefty, to be honest. Look at me, you know. And so, you know, the amount of insults I get. But can I actually put something else to you that's led to the decline of resilience? Is the removal of a hardening agent from the environment, which has meant that we've all become soft, and that is the bullies. I wonder in school, because I copped my fair share of bullying. I was never a bully, but But I do sometimes wonder, because we always go, oh, they bullied this girl to death, and we hear all these terrible stories. But do bullies actually play a part in character building? Because at some point you're confronted with something and you
Yeah,
have to face it. And
yeah,
I know in school, I remember there was one big young fella. He was actually 2 years younger than me, but he was a monolith. And I punched him in the belly, and he almost knocked me out with a punch. But he never touched me again,
yeah,
ever. He never touched me again because I hit back. I didn't hurt him, but I ruffled his shirt.
yeah.
But the others wouldn't put up anything because he came. I remember he came up to us and he came up to my mate. This is a kid 2 years younger than us, and said, "Give me $1." And this kid just gave him $1. And then that's when I said, "What are you doing? You don't give him $1." And then we had an altercation. But I remember, I just wonder if this is missing. It's controversial, I know, but what are your thoughts?
It's a really, really challenging subject because I was both bullied and a bully at school. And one of the tentative
Thanks, mate.
conclusions that I've drawn is that I think if you are bullied and you are then put in a position of authority over somebody else, you run the risk of becoming a bully. And I typified that as an adolescent and a young man. I think that's why I was such an arsehole as a manager the first time around, that I was given a position of authority and I abused it. Now, I'm not going to justify being a totalitarian manager. I've done enough of that already. But there is, if we're not confronted with some form of adversity and given the opportunity to overcome it, we will be weaker as a result. Now, whether bullying is that adversity or not, given my reflection on, when I say I was a bully at school, I was never big enough to be a physical bully, but I was intelligent enough to be an intellectual and a social bully. And I look back on my behavior in those two arenas, and I'm horrified that I was able to act the way that I did. And so when I don't disagree with you, Michael, I just don't like agreeing with you.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because just thinking back, it's because I've always stood up to bullies. It's just something I've done in workplaces, everything. It's just must be just something in me. I don't like being.
I've definitely done it as an adult. I've stood up for other people at my own peril as an adult.
Yeah.
And I want to believe it's because I've got that intellectual sense of wanting to be a better person. That's allowed me to evolve into that person who does take those sort of social risks. But we're not talking about people like you and us and the people watching this podcast in general terms. We're talking about the majority of people. And in the face of bullying, the majority of people give them the 20 cents.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You know,
and
just for the peace, just the safety, or they evaluate, I can't beat you. What the hell? This is the easier way to go.
And that circles back to our original conversation point.
Yeah.
The majority of people prefer to be governed, even if it's brutal. And I think the answer is yes. I think if you've got a totalitarian in charge and they're willing to get, like, thankfully we've only had rubber bullets fired at us in Australia.
So what this? I hate to say it, but what you're actually stating, and I have to say I agree with you, that the great enemy, people who value liberty of mind and maybe just liberty on all, freedom of speech, people who covet these gifts are endangering of losing it. And the enemy isn't the government, it's not Klaus Schwab, but it's their brothers and sisters who don't value them and just want an easy life or whatever, and they're willing to endure a level of draconianism which would make our hair stand on end, but they're willing to put up with it. And we know from history, from the USSR, any sort of, any of those governing systems, like there was Portugal, there was Mussolini, there was Argentina, North Korea, China now, where they say there's uprising. I don't know. We don't know. We see it. but they are. So our little tribe are the tribes that don't want to be bullied, which is why we said no. Or even if you said yes, once they realized they didn't want to do it, then there's basically it's not to do with you vaccinated or not. It's just where you had the thing to go, I don't like to be told what to do. I'm a free person. But unfortunately, there's far less of us than there is of the other people who don't have an issue with being governed. And so this is the real threat. And we say we're going to wake people up. What we're not actually waking them up. We're asking them to escape the cage. The door is open.
Yes.
Just jump on the thing and come outside with us and fly. I've been telling people for a while now, I feel like I'm a escape budgie, just flying around the cage going, hey, look, it's okay out here. I can, it's this. But
okay, well, let's not get too out. Hang on, Michael, I've got to interrupt you there because there's a danger in what you just said.
Sure.
I don't want us to run the risk of romanticizing leaving the cage. Staying in the cage means you are unlikely to be taken by a hawk. Now, I think we are representative of people who would rather 5 minutes of freedom and be taken by a hawk than a whole lifetime of being in a cage.
Yeah.
And
a short life on your feet or a long life on your knees.
That's right. And most people will go for the long life, even if it means being on their knees. Now,
even if it means taking us down with them.
Well, of course. And this is why we are still struggling. We dissenters are really struggling because we are an existential threat on almost every level for these people who are exercising their right.
I'm just talking about Rebecca. She says, I feel like I live in zombie world. I'm with you, Rebecca.
I've got my camera in front of the comments, so I need to
so it's Rebecca Powell. G'day, Rebecca's saying, I feel like I live in zombie world. Yeah. That's how I feel,
Okay, but I sat through I can't think of what the series was. There was a series on Netflix a couple of years back about the zombie apocalypse. The name will come to me. But anyway, I watched this thing, and it was about a group of normal, healthy, non-zombie people desperately trying to stay alive post the zombie apocalypse. And I found myself thinking, it would have been so much easier just to become a zombie. You never die. You just stumble around, and even if you don't find a healthy human to bite, you just keep on living.
Yeah, I know. They seem to be very resilient.
So maybe that's where the meek will inherit the earth actually comes from.
I think they're doing it by force. They're sick of waiting. They're doing it by force. The meek are inheriting the earth by force now. There's it's a very fascinating conversation. It's good to end on hope. Well, I think the way to bring this round to hope is to. We ordered a load of books. So the guy who published them is John Stapleton. He's in Thailand at the moment. I think it's Thailand or Vietnam, and so he's working on getting them into the library. And we're ordering some so that we can sign them. They've all been sold, and I've been signing them, and I've been individual messages in all of them. And what I realized was why I called it Goodbye Road is that's what happened to us. If you decided not to go with the narrative, you were kicked out onto Goodbye Road. See you later. F off. And we were the orphans of Goodbye Road. But what we've become is the lights. This road is illuminated because one thing we've discovered on this road is such great strength within us. We are far more resilient than we were previous to COVID. We're still vibrantly alive. You see that when you get us together, like now, you get us together and we just talk our boxes off. You know what I mean? I see it everywhere. We enjoy each other's company. It's all like we're exploring. We're all coming back with little clues that we found, ideas, hypotheses of what could actually be happening, and all these other things that we're doing. And I would theorize that maybe in this life, one of the most remarkable things is you kind of have to lose everything you think matters in order to find yourself.
What a
And
terrifying prospect that is for a
and
meek
find
person.
a part of you that goes, wow, everything I thought I needed to survive, I can do without it, and I'm still here, and I'm still alive, and I can carve a new existence, and I don't need to suckle off the teat of the government. I actually don't want the government to do anything, and that's why I love the Blue Bee. We got those stickers there. Oh, here it is. So I think we got some. You got some heading towards you now.
We have, yeah.
So this is why I love the Blue Bee. It doesn't follow a queen, doesn't live in a hive, but it doesn't live in a hive. But it still pollinates flowers. It still wants to be a part of life, a part of society, but it just wants to think and feel. It's basically a sovereign bee. It's a sovereign. I hate to say it, guys. You know, it wants to be a citizen, because I think sovereign citizen is the wrong way around. We are citizens, but we also want to be sovereign, which means we want to think for ourselves. Don't tell us what to think. Don't tell us what to do, because we will abide the laws. We don't want to hurt people. We don't want to harm other people, but we just want to live as free as we can. And in this country, which has freedom in the first line of its national anthem, that's supposed to mean something. But at the moment, the national anthem is a lie. And so, yeah, I'm sort of ranting now. Sorry, man. But but the ranting is more discovery. You have these thoughts and you haven't filled them out. But that's what the discovery that I've made is that we've all been on an odyssey, and it's not over yet. And we've become these quite astonishing human beings.
Yeah.
And what's the most astonishing with us is this soul connection we have, where we can sit here and talk, and I've never been able to do this in my life with so many people ever. You'd meet one or two people you could do, but to have a whole tribe you can sit down with and chat, it's so rare.
The prospect of going back to life pre-2020 doesn't really appeal to me at all. I don't want to go back to being normal. That's like voluntarily going back into the cage. I would rather have not gone through the last 5 years, but it's been such an education, so uplifting. I feel so privileged to be part of this community that we're part of and talking with now. And if I was still that caged bird that I was in, for the first 70 years of my life, I wouldn't know what I'd missed. By the way, I wouldn't. If COVID hadn't happened, I would still have been. I mean, I used to advocate for the ID card. In my 30s and 40s, I used to say I trusted the government so much that I used to say, "What's the point of the government knowing everything about you if you're not doing anything wrong?" And then all of a sudden, I went from being that part of the mainstream, and all of the rules changed, and all of a sudden I was out with this bunch of ragtag malcontents, facing deregistration. And hang on a minute, my God, imagine if I'd had an ID card. So, it's an evolutionary thing. It's a growth thing, and
it's so interesting. It's so I don't have the answers. All I have is I'm getting closer to having good questions, and
that's the secret, and that's what they nearly deregistered me over, Michael. Encouraging people to ask intelligent questions. I nearly lost my license for that. That's how frightening it is to them. They can't tolerate people asking questions. I've been a very difficult person to manage my whole working life, and whenever a manager has said to me, "Gee, you're a difficult bastard to get on with, Lindsay," my response was always,
"I don't find that at all.
Just do common sense things. Stop doing stupid things, and I'll be the easiest bloke to get on the world with." But they would come out with these nonsensical edicts, and I would say, "That makes no sense." And they'd say, "It doesn't matter. We're telling you to do it." And I'd say, "Well, you can try and tell me to do it, but I fucking won't." And they'd go, "Well, you'll lose your job." And I'd go, "Oh, boo-hoo." And they'd say, "But we don't want to lose you." And I'd say, "Well, pull your head out of your ass and stop telling me to do these dumb things." And they'd say, "But we've been told to do them from on high." And I'd say, "Okay, see you later."
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I totally get that. I've been in so many situations like that, but yeah,
So
it's
with
fascinating. I actually don't think we're gonna get a huge influx of people just yet. And everyone says things have got to get harder, things have got to get harder. But then you look at history, and people will put, like even the French Revolution, they're literally starving to death before they rose
yeah,
up.
yes,
So
and
we are
now that's
far, far away from any sort of revolution or anything.
okay. And the French Revolution's interesting because I left it out of my summary of historical insurgencies
Mm,
because the French Revolution may have been a people's uprising, but it resulted in a people's totalitarianism. The
yeah, that's correct.
post-revolutionary French world was far worse than the pre-revolution French world.
Yeah,
So I don't, and I think what we're seeing, and I think it's going to happen relatively quickly, is that our soft totalitarianism that we're experiencing, and it's getting worse with the e-Karen and the stuff we learned about with the federal police and all that sort of stuff today.
yeah,
I think it's going to flicker and fade very quickly. And it's not going to be because of a public uprising. It's going to be because they will parentalize us until they are broken, paralyzed. And that's when the phoenix will rise from the ashes, says he, mixing metaphors like that. So that's I want to be, and that's
no, it's
why
good.
I
It's good
think
to end on hope. It's good.
yeah.
We have a moral
And if
obligation not to sell hopelessness, no matter how tight its grip.
And if we don't cultivate this group of free thinkers, of
Yes,
questioners, of people who want a better thing for them and their kids, if we
yeah,
don't keep us alive, then if and when it collapses, there'll be nothing to step back in and take its place. We need
yeah, that's right.
Jared Rennicks and those sort of, and the Malcolm Robertses of this world, so that when it collapses, there will be decent people waiting in the wings to step in and start it up again.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think we're the seed that the new age will hopefully emerge from, and that's when we'll be most needed as a group, as a tribe.
mm,
And I want the people that I vividly remember. One of the guys I play tennis with saying when they learned of my troubles with APRA, he said, "Geez, Lindsay, why don't you just get vaccinated?" When what I expect to come to pass comes to pass,
that's right, mate.
I expect that guy to come back to me and say, "I now know why you didn't get vaccinated."
Mm,
And that will be the new beginnings. That'll be the new shoots coming up out of the barren ground
mm.
that this parentalistic government is going to leave behind itself. But Albo will be okay. He's got his $4.5 million mansion on a cliff. He's good.
So he can watch
John Skerritt,
he can watch the climate change come in right up until he's got the
yeah.
ocean at his doorstep.
Yeah. John Skerritt's got his highly paid job with the pharmaceutical industry. He's good.
Yeah,
Bastards.
yeah. I think that's a good place to end it. I'll play the song
I
now.
think so
5
too,
minutes,
mate.
we go 2 hours. Beautiful, Lindsay.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for coming on. And
I love it. I really appreciate talking to you, mate. It's great.
yeah, no, me too, brother. Me too. I seriously enjoyed tonight. Thanks everybody for watching. And we might be back at 10 o'clock tomorrow. We'll let you know in the morning, talking about MyGov being hacked because so many people contacted me. It's ridiculous. But for now, we're going to go and get back to work. And we'll have some more news on the 40-hour meta famine. You should be a part of that. Is coming up. And g'day, Willow. And so stay well, everybody. And I'll see you in 2 weeks, Lindsay.
Yeah, cheers, mate. See you later.
Try not to end up in a gulag unless I'm there, because we can have chat nights.
Yeah. Great to be here, mate. And good night, everybody.
Take care. This is a new song. You're probably not going to like it, but it's a poem put to music. This is called 100 Years, $100. Good night, everybody.
Oh, you started with it. It's awesome.
See ya.
Tomorrow, I'm meeting a woman who posts naked photos of herself on Instagram and then tells me in text that she's plain. I Googled the modern definition of the word plain. but all I found was my face. And somewhere below the bats are flying overhead, like some sort of prehistoric hunger. Which is this night, which is just another night, where this lonely person gets onto my tram. I call it a person because I can't tell if it's a woman or a man. And she looks like she's been living in her clothes for a week. They are too big for him and they are dirty, and her hair is a nest blown free from a naked tree in a storm which overlooked me. And with a Slurpee in her hand, she sits in my tram. At Box Hill, he just stands on the stop as though she is lost. So I ask him, do you know where you are, my love? And she asks, are you heading back? Yes, but only to the depot. And she nods to this, then looks up at the night, where the bat's wings are whispering to her. And then she asks me, is there anywhere there where I can stay? No, but I can drop you off at Macca's. You could stay there for the night. I don't think that they would mind. And so together we're now heading back to Q, but I just don't know what to do. If I bring her home, my family will go crazy. But if I leave her here alone, what sort of crazy Christian soul action is that? And I think she's only about 20. Do you have any money? I ask. Yes, she says, and she says it politely and into the last of her drink. Are you sure? Because I can stop at a bank and get you some cash. And privately I've been wondering all the way to here, how much should I give her to placate my soul? $40. But then because I've been having a good week that sounds like chicken shit, so my soul suggests let's give her $100. And my brain replies no, 40 is fine. And as they fight for an inner consensus, my heart turns around and says, look, let me give you some money. But she looks up to me and says, no, that's fine. Then she stands and asks me, is this stop mine? And our golden arches church is a candle in her eyes. Thank you, driver, she says. And then alone she steps off into the bats night, leaves me heading back in an empty tram to a date with a woman who sounds empty too. And the knowledge that my secret mirror will never reflect my soul's man. And the knowledge that my secret mirror will never reflect my soul's man.